You may think that Marie Kondo's method is woo-woo Eastern nonsense, and to that I tell you, go to Wikipedia and search for the word Shintoism. Hello beautiful people, hi, my name is Mia and this is my virtual vanity, a place where we both love makeup and we are quite critical of it. Today I want to discuss how the KonMari method changed my life, my makeup, and subsequently my vanity. KonMari method really came to me at a place in my life where I felt I needed a change, where clutter was overwhelming me, where my own relationship with objects was so tangled in things that happened in my past and links that I created between the objects I owned and my own sense of self-fulfillment and self-identity, that it honestly needed a good untangling, because it was a Gordian knot of mess. If you're new to the KonMari method, let me explain a bit what's going on with it. Basically, the KonMari method is a decluttering and organizing method created by Marie Kondo.
Hello, I'm Marie Kondo. 私のミッションは片付けによって世界をときめかせていくことです。
She's got a book out, book that became a very quick success, especially in America where over-consumerism seems to be the norm. But also overseas because it provided a really fresh perspective on decluttering and improving your relationship with objects. Whereas most other books you methods on how to do it, and just that, Marie Kondo also gave it an air of mysticism, and that's to put it a bit disrespectfully, because I don't feel that anything she does is overly mystic or woo-woo nonsense as her critics have called it, but rather a very sensible and soulful and full of feeling approach to how we can manage not only the objects in our lives but also the way we enter relationships with the objects that we bring into our home and that we interact with or not. She presented methods of decluttering, of arranging items, of getting rid of items, but also a new perspective on how to view the world. She categorizes items in a few categories: clothing, books, paperwork, and miscellanea. When I started doing the KonMari method, I also added my own category of makeup, and I will get to that shortly. But let me first tell you how the KonMari method changed my life from the very beginning. So as I said, I came across her book just a bit after I moved in with my boyfriend, and all of our communal belongings brought it to the same space. All of the past that we carried with us in the form of items that we did not get rid of before moving, all of that into one house was incredibly overwhelming, full of clutter. It was just a very cramped up space where items would not get put where they belong, but rather shuffled here and there according to our needs. And so I came across her book and first did a general round of declutter as per her categories. I decluttered my clothes, I decluttered my books, I decluttered the miscellanea, the paperwork, and then a year passed. And I noticed myself falling into the same issues that caused declutter in the first place. I found myself in a cycle of purging and accumulating, at which point I reread the book. And I realized that in my rush to get my house cleaned up, I missed a couple of very important points that are not maybe stated as such in the book, but that are subtly implied. The first thing would be introspection related to the relationship that we have with the objects in our home and the objects that we surround ourselves with, not necessarily in the home, but objects that we own, that we have in the office, in our bags, in our cars, if you have a car. And the conclusion that I reached was that in order to eliminate this cycle of purging and accumulating and purging again and accumulating, which wasted time and money, I needed to rectify the way that I looked at the world and the objects around me. Marie Kondo, something that I had easily dismissed at first. Her very animistic view of the world, her whole give items a shake to wake them up, or thank them when you declutter them, thank them for your service, appreciate what they did for you. All of that I easily dismissed as her being a bit, you know, cookie. It was so wrong of me, because that is the best essence that you could get from that book. Not the decluttering methods, not her famous folding, but rather the way she views objects. And that is with respect. Let me give you a bit of a background. For 5 years or so, Marie Kondo was a Shinto priestess working at a Shinto shrine. And Shinto, in essence, seems to be a very animistic religion. Shinto sees the sacred in everything, in the most ordinary object. From the cosmos, to us people, to animals, to books, clothes, rocks. Everything has a living essence, a consciousness, a distillation of what that thing is that brings on a certain type of awareness. If you've ever seen a movie Spirited Away, I'm not trying to say that things are alive in the same sense that you or I are alive, or that a cat is alive, or an insect is alive, or even a plant. It's nothing like that. They just have their own essence, their own presence in the world that needs to be acknowledged and respected, as I said earlier, more than things to be discarded and to be used. Not full-on Shinto, but it is a view of the world that I really respect for the care that it puts behind it. So Marie Kondo was 4 or 5 years a Shinto priestess, which means that a lot of her work has Shinto tendencies, including a lot of the things she says: waking up books, waking up objects, treating the house as a sacred space in which you will work, thanking the items before you go. And so I sat and really pondered a couple of questions. First, why do I keep accumulating items? Second, why do I hoard these items? What does that say about my relationship with the world and my relationship with the space I live in? And third, do I respect these items as they should be respected? I was accumulating items to help me achieve the goal of an existence that I thought would be better or more perfect, and that did not fit my current realities or needs, but fit the needs of the person that I wanted to be, the house that I wanted to have, hobbies that I wanted to have, and so on. It was for a fantasy home and a fantasy self. And what that means for you, and what it meant for me, was that you need to be incredibly truthful with yourself. Am I using these items, or am I keeping them for a fictional day of tomorrow that will never come? Am I actually that person, or am I wanting to be that person but not doing any action to do so? Let's say you own skis because you've wanted at a certain point to learn to ski, but you never use them. You keep saying that that will be the year when you learn, but you never do. So those skis are for your fantasy self. And because you're not taking action on them, you are not respecting them as items worthy of your home, worthy of you. And that means that you need to thank them for teaching you the lesson that you will never end up skiing, and that if you do, it's not going to be anytime soon, and let them go to be used and to fulfill their purpose. Then the second one was, what does this say about what does my clutter say about the space that I live in? And basically I went to therapy for a while for other reasons. I'm a depressed bitch. And at a certain point I was telling my therapist that in my former home where I lived with my grandmother, I would have just a disaster in my room, a lot of clutter, and never any like dirty things like, I don't know, packaging or expired food, nothing like that, just a lot of functional stuff that was strewn about everywhere, and I refused to order them in a way that would please her. And what she told me was that this clutter was me claiming the space in a household where I felt powerless, where I felt victimized. Me scattering those things around and accumulating more and more of them made me feel in control and made me feel one step closer towards me getting out, or towards me becoming that free person that I wished to be. Objects did not do that for me, and they never did. And what they did actually was I finally moved out of that toxic place and I ended up in a loving home. And what happened was that I brought all of these items with me, but the space was already mine. There was nothing to claim, nothing for them to overcome. They were just taking space. And to be honest, most of them I had stopped loving a long time ago, but I did not want to give up on them because they made me feel secure in that former space. And so, with that in mind, I came to the conclusion that I do not need to stake my claim on my space anymore. It is mine. I started decluttering. I realized that there is no shortage of anything anymore. I do not need to keep everything just in case. There is nothing to fight with by putting up this wall of stuff to protect me. And so, as I said, I started decluttering. And in that round, I got rid of more than half of my possessions, even 75%. I kept only the things that I loved, only the things that brought me joy, as Marie Kondo said, and some functional items, because let's face it, whose toothbrush brings them joy? Fuck it. And also there is something to be said about this bringing joy thing. Lots of people take it too literally. You do not need to feel necessarily ecstatic about everything that you have. For example, my tripod itself does not bring me joy, but the idea that it helps me film for YouTube does. So yeah, it might not be my ideal tripod, but you know what? I love it. It helps me do what I love. I have to think of it contextually. Yes, my toothbrush does not bring me personally joy. Does having clean teeth do? Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I think everybody that goes through the Marie Kondo method should do is really consider what your fantasy self is and if you can realistically get to it. My fantasy self was someone that loved every piece of item in her closet and felt stylish while also having a style that she felt comfortable with. So I decluttered down those clothes that did not fit this aesthetic. And I ended up with a wardrobe that I am 95% happy with. My fantasy self wore lots of fancy jewelry. And yes, I decluttered the jewelry that I did not like and ended up purchasing pieces that I did enjoy. My fantasy self painted more than the person that I was back then. And so I thought, man, it's time to really put all of those unused paints to use. And I gave myself a time limit. If I do not start painting more in that selected medium in 2 weeks, those paints need to go. They need to go to a loving home, to someone that would appreciate them. Same with all other craft activities and hobbies that I eventually picked up or didn't pick up. You need a solid deadline where you can see if you really want to become that fantasy person or if you're too lazy to. And being too lazy to is absolutely okay. We all want to be other people. The grass is always greener. You don't have to realize that fantasy if you feel it's too much effort. but you also don't need to keep all of the shit that comes with that fantasy just because. I did mention earlier that I'm gonna talk about how the Konmari method changed my makeup collection, and after I reviewed my relationship with the items and I gathered a healthy sense of respect for what these objects can do for me or for other people and why they are wasted in my possession if I do not use them, I took a long, hard look at the smug tier hoard of makeup that I had accumulated and massively decluttered. And the same questions popped up again. Why am I keeping this? Is it for my fantasy self? Is it for me? What does this object say about me that I bought it? What does this object say about my desires, my aesthetics, my fantasy aesthetic maybe? And what can this object teach me so I don't create more waste in the future by buying more similar to it? So let's say I bought, I don't know, a purple highlighter, which I now use and adore, but never mind. Let's say that I bought a purple highlighter. What does that tell me? That tells me that I want to experiment more with color and alternative makeup, and that I want to look more fairy-like and ethereal. So I have two choices. I can either put the purple highlighter on and live my best life and be the fairy I know I can be, or I can put it on, think maybe, you know, I'm not gonna get out of the house with this, and pass it on to someone that can use it. And if I pass it on, I get a couple of lessons. One, I don't want to go outside with lavender highlight on my face. Two, maybe I don't like how a purple highlighter looks on me. Maybe I like it more on other people. Maybe my style does not suit that type of highlighter anyway. Maybe I don't like the formula, maybe I don't like the finish, maybe I don't like highlighter, period. All of these lessons, you can file them away in your little mental castle and consider them next time you buy, so you avoid impulse purchases. So you avoid accumulating more of these items that you will never use for various reasons. Another example, I bought a very icy silver highlight thinking that it would look great with my cool skin tone. It did not fucking look great at all. So what did I learn? Don't buy silver highlights anymore. So I rehomed it to a friend that uses it and loves it. Basically what I'm trying to say is that even if you buy a lot, you need to buy with intention. You do not need to buy with an impulse, just to accumulate, just to scratch an itch, just to release that flow of endorphins in your body. I no longer buy to scratch an itch. I buy because I need a certain item. Like, I don't know, my black tank top got a rip. I need a new one. So I buy a black tank top. Maybe I just want a new nice shirt, and I will buy a beautiful nice shirt just because I want it, but I will think it 5 times through. I will think, do I have anything similar in my closet? Will I realistically wear it? Do I like the color, fabric, and fit completely? This item fit me now and not some future fabulously skinny version of myself that will never happen because I fucking love pizza. For buying, I do the same thing that I do before decluttering. I hold the item in my hand and I really contemplate. What are you bringing into my life? Why do I like you? Why do I dislike you? Are there any reasons for me to keep going or let you go? And if I let you go, what am I learning from you? Happened with my makeup collection as well. Don't get me wrong, I have a huge makeup collection. I have issues, but every purchase that I do now is intentional, and if it doesn't work for me, it's because it's accidental. It's not because I keep trying to buy the same type of item that didn't work for me just in case I will find that elusive holy grail. It's not because I buy for a wispy fantasy self that might never get realized. So now every item that comes to me, if I declutter it because I learned something new. Or I declutter it because somehow my calculations were incorrect and maybe the formula doesn't work, which you have no way of knowing 100% sure before buying. or the shade is off because the lighting in the store was shit, or something like that. But I no longer make the mistake of buying items just to scratch an itch, just to make my collection grow bigger. I think, do I have functional dupes? Why do I want to buy this? Do I really need this? Do I love the brand? Do I love the formula? Do I love the finish, the color, everything? And if it's not an instant love, I do not purchase it. Plain and easy. And if it's something like, if it's an item that was good enough but not perfect, then I put it in a project pan and try to use it up still. I do not declutter it just because it's not 100% perfect. If it's shit, yeah. If it doesn't work for me but might work for somebody else, yeah. But if it's a thing that's just meh, it's okay, I will use it up. I will pay that object the respect it deserves. I try not to fall into the sunk cost fallacy, but I still try to give the items that I bring into my home their due. I try to use clothes until they're used and don't look great, and even if they don't look great, I see if I can mend them. Like, if a sweater is like piley and shit, can I do something to remove the pile and still keep using it if I like it? If I don't like it, I thank it and I let it go. I rehome it. I have a few people that I know are in constant need of new clothes. They work for charities. I know who to give these clothes to and these items to that they will 100% get use out of and not get dumped someplace. So basically what I'm trying to say is that reading KonMari not once but twice in different periods of my life, in different mental states, really helped me get a new relationship with the world and the way I view objects. I now view objects and my relationship with objects as a bilateral one. I give you your due respect and you help me live my life, or you make me feel beautiful, or you make me feel colorful, you help me express myself. Or maybe you're just functional, but you do your job and you help me in my day-to-day. And if an item is not used, I will let it go. But not before, as I said, giving it its due respect and saying thank you. Okay guys, that was it. I'd like to hear your thoughts down below. I'd like to hear about if you want a separate video on specifically on my relationship with makeup now that the Marie Kondo method, you know, entered my life and changed me and swept me off my feet, or anything similar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful evening, morning, or whatever it is where you're from. Bye.